hours, the UN expressed its readiness to fully support both AU and the parties to the implementation of the peace accord. And an initiative to advance Africa's digital transformation has been launched. Hello and thank you for joining us. You're watching Addis News Hour with the news. I'm Tabitha John. Stay with us. President Sahle-Work Zewde discussed with United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres. President Sahle-Work received Secretary General Antonio Guterres at her office and spoke to him. Guterres earlier discussed various issues with Prime Minister Dr. Abiy Ahmed and confirmed that Ethiopia and the United Nations will continue to strengthen their cooperation. The Secretary General then consulted with President Sahle-Work Zewde on various issues. The focus of their discussion is on current issues in Ethiopia and international common issues, it was noted.
I think that you have always played a very important role as a voice of wisdom.
And others in their language. First, they didn't really want to see one another, and so on.
Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has discussed with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, joined by AUC Chair Moussa Faki Mahamat today in Addis Ababa on various issues. Quote unquote, I warmly welcome to Ethiopia UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, joined by AUC Chair Moussa Faki Mahamat, the Premier tweeted following the meeting, adding, we held fruitful discussions on a number of issues. I look forward to our strengthened collaboration, the Premier noted. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres underlined that the UN appreciates the mediation of the AU-led peace accord between the government of Ethiopia and the TPLF and is ready to fully support both AU and the parties to its implementation. AUC Chairperson Moussa Faki Mahamat, on his part, reaffirmed that the African Union Commission will provide all the necessary support for the peace agreement's implementation. Shagau Yamatao has the following account.
The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres and the African Union Commission Chairperson Moussa Faki Mahamat made a statement in Addis Ababa. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres underlined that the UN appreciated the mediation of the AU-led peace accord between the government of Ethiopia and the TPLF and ready to fully support both African Union and the parties to its implementation.
The United Nations fully supports the process of mediation of the African Union that led to the recent agreement on the cessation of hostilities. Now we are in the phase of implementation, and we are ready to fully support both the African Union and the parties in whatever is necessary to make sure that that implementation is successful. But we believe in the African leadership in the solution of African problems, and we are very happy to be able to support the African Union in this process.
The Secretary General also noted that the peace deal is an opportunity that Ethiopia, Africa and the world cannot miss and urged everyone to support the African Union and both parties to make sure to reach a final peace settlement.
Discussions at military level are extremely promising from my point of view. But more important than to assess what is happening is to make sure that everybody is deeply engaged in contributing to the success. This is an opportunity that Ethiopia cannot miss, that Africa cannot miss, and that the world cannot miss. There were more casualties in the conflict in Ethiopia than in the conflict in Ukraine. People sometimes forget that this has been a dramatic conflict, and what was achieved thanks to the mediation of the African Union, is remarkable, and it's the obligation of everybody everywhere in the world to do everything possible to support the African Union and to support the parties to make sure that we reach a final peace settlement.
Guterres also stated that the UN is upscaling humanitarian aid to quickly provide support on road and air to people in need in Ethiopia, adding he appealed the international community to support the country in such crucial time.
We have dramatic humanitarian needs in the areas impacted by conflict, and we are upscaling the capacity of all the UN agencies and our partners in order to be able to take profit of the opening of roads that already exist, the access by air, and all the other aspects in order to be able to, as quickly as possible, provide the maximum possible support to all the populations in need. And finally, we appeal to the international community to support Ethiopia in its development. There is not a better way to consolidate peace than developing the country, creating the conditions for the people to see the peace dividends, people to see how peace contributes to improvement of the living conditions of the citizens of the country. And we'll be in the first line of advocating for international support for the development of Ethiopia in this crucial moment of the history of the country.
The African Union Commission Chairperson Moussa Faki Mohamed on his part reaffirmed that the African Union Commission will provide all the necessary support for the peace agreement implementation.
Nous avions signé un accord cadre.
The peace deal signed by the two parties under the auspice of the African Union is a great stride for Africa. I really appreciate the commitment and willingness of the two parties. And the African Union, as it has been doing, will continue to support the parties as well as the people of Ethiopia to the implementation of the cessation of hostilities as well as humanitarian support to all people affected by the war in the country.
On a similar development, the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres underlined that it is time to ensure robust peace enforcement and stop terrorist operations in Africa. Regarding climate support to developing countries, he said the establishment of a loss and damage fund that the recent COP27 mapped is the key step toward climate justice for those who have done the least to cause the crisis, namely Africa, adding developed countries must keep the promise to provide $10 billion annually for developing countries and reform the business models of multilateral development banks and international financial institutions. Take a listen to this.
Africa deserves and needs peace. From the Sahel to the Great Lakes, to this very country, deep-rooted conflicts continue to challenge us. Today we discussed how our organizations are working to ensure peace across the continent. From an independent assessment on security and development in the Sahel promoted by the African Union and the United Nations, to forging a negotiated settlement here in Ethiopia, building on the recent cessation of hostilities agreement brokered by the African Union, to supporting stability in Somalia and the transition in Libya, and restoring constitutional order in Burkina Faso, Chad, Guinea, Mali, and Sudan. Unconstitutional government changes are not acceptable. They are not part of a civilized world. To join weapons collection campaigns in Madagascar, Niger, and Uganda. To supporting the Nairobi process led by the East African Community to bring peace and security to the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And to secure human rights across Africa as we prepare to mark the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But one question that is particularly dear to my heart and particularly important for the world, we need to make sure that we ensure robust African peace enforcement and counter-terrorist operations mandated by the UN Security Council and the Chapter 7 of the UN Charter, and with stable and predictable funding through assessed contributions. Africa deserves and needs climate support. The establishment of a loss and damage fund at the recent COP27 marked a key step towards climate justice for those who have done the least to cause the crisis, namely Africa. We also launched an action plan to extend early warning systems to protect every person in the world within 5 years, including the 6 in 10 Africans who lack these systems. However, the promise to double adaptation finance to $40 billion annually has not been met. Sub-Saharan Africa adaptation costs alone are estimated to run as high as $50 billion annually over the next decade. Africa cannot foot this bill alone, nor should it. Efforts like the Africa Adaptation Acceleration Program require massive funding and investment, and developed countries must keep their promise to provide $10 billion annually for developing countries and reform the business models of multilateral development banks and international financial institutions.
That was just an excerpt of Antonio Guterres' speech, but you can listen to his full remarks right after the news is completed. The Technical Planning Joint Committee, which is expected to outline the detailed plan for the disarmament of Tigray combatants, has convened in Shire town. As per the Pretoria Peace Agreement, the Joint Committee, mandated to outline the disarmament details of Tigray armed combatants, has assumed its functions yesterday, November 30, 2022. The committee, consisting of members from the federal government and Tigray armed combatants, is expected to finalize its duties in the coming few days. The committee's detailed plan is envisaged to address the issues of disarmament and other related matters. It is to be recalled that the planning has been delayed due to technical factors.
After the peace agreement signed between the federal government and TPLF, peace is being restored in Ethiopia. In this December, we will bring to you fresh stories about the implementation of the peace agreement and other socio-economic and political matters of the country. Watch us on English language channel every day at 9 p.m.
ETV English, the voice of Renaissance and diversity, will bring you up to speed with latest developments regarding New Year and Christmas, especially Ethiopian Christmas named Ganna. Follow us on social media platforms. Stay tuned to ETV Language channel.
Thirty-two countries are contending to lift up the most prestigious cup in the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. This December, ETV Language will provide the World Cup updates. Stay tuned to ETV Languages.
Welcome back. After 2 years of conflict between the Ethiopian government and the TPLF, the annual holiday of Aksum Tzion Mariam celebration in Tigray region is colorfully celebrated. The faithful in attendance of the celebration said that they have peacefully celebrated the feast on Wednesday due to the peace and stability which prevails in the city following the peace agreement. Jerusalem Betza has more.
The annual Mariam Tzion celebration of St. Mary of Aksum is one of the main feasts celebrated by followers of Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church. This holiday is celebrated to adore St. Mary and especially to honor the Ark of the Covenant in St. Mary Church of Aksum. Followers of the faith during the ceremony stated that many devotees did not celebrate the feast in the last 2 years due to security concerns. But this year, the feast was celebrated in a grand manner due to the peace and stability created following the peace agreement.
I am here to honor the annual Mariam Tzion celebration. The celebration is colorful. We have celebrated the day warmly due to the peace and stability created following the peace agreement. The celebration is very good. We have praised God from last night to then, and now we have finished peacefully thanks to God. We all want to see the peaceful implementation of the peace deal and to return our peace like before. This is my sole wish. Currently, we have celebrated the annual Mariam Teon holiday. This is a good manifestation to our peace is returned.
They further expressed their hope to celebrate it more colorfully by ensuring lasting peace.
I'm so happy due to the peace agreement. I'm really praying to God to ensure lasting peace in our country. We want to see all being committed for the implementation to the peace accord. If we do this, we will see large number of the faithful from all corners of Ethiopia and abroad in the annual Mariam Teon celebration next year.
The church is located in the town of Aksum, Tigray region in northern Ethiopia, near the grounds of obelisks of Aksum.
The Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, ICANN, has launched the Coalition for Digital Africa, an initiative aimed at expanding the Internet in Africa. The coalition announced instead of relying on networks and servers in other parts of the world, these clusters allow regional Internet searches to be answered locally. Potential cyber attacks in Africa will likewise have less of an impact. Conceived by ICANN, the coalition is an alliance of like-minded organizations committed to building a robust and secure internet infrastructure to bring more Africans online. Kasahun Chani report.
The Coalition for Digital Africa is a project started by the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, ICANN, with the goal of growing internet in Africa. The coalition, an alliance of like-minded groups dedicated to establishing a strong and secure internet infrastructure in order to connect more Africans online, was conceptualized by ICANN. ICANN's mission is to help ensure a stable, secure, and unified global internet. According to ICANN President Ansio Gorman Murphy, the Coalition for Digital Africa gives an opportunity for new ways of cooperating and coordinating among diverse stakeholders.
The coalition is going to really focus on three sort of areas. First of them being to enhance the stability of the DNS. So we need to strengthen the DNS, which is, of course, where it's ICANN's remit somewhere. And this is where we also think that we should be contributing to the provision of the infrastructure, the accessibility also to Africa. The second area, of course, is going to be facilitating meaningful connectivity by fostering multilingualism, for instance, online, and encouraging local content development. And the third one is going to be developing capacity to equip Africans with skills and knowledge that are necessary to participate in the multi-stakeholder model of internet governance.
By enabling individuals to access the internet using their native languages and scripts, the coalition will further advance innovation targeted at enhancing technical skills and foster entrepreneurship. And though the coalition's official launch took place during a press conference at the 17th Annual Internet Governance Forum, it has already begun to engage in actions to further its objectives. The African Telecommunications Union Secretary General John Omo claims that the coalition provides an essential tool for enabling a better protected DNS and more secure internet infrastructure across Africa.
I think this coalition is happening at a time when the idea of development of the internet infrastructure and indeed the various facets of internet, whether in terms of reach, whether in terms of security, whether in terms of content, is one that is not in doubt and compelling enough that we should all believe in. Idea of ATU's commitment to this coalition is one that when it was first shared with us is one that we latched on straight from the word go in terms of harnessing the various capacities of the institutions that are involved in the internet ecosystem for purposes of internet development in Africa.
The Association of African Universities endeavour to make email and other systems in higher education. Ready is one way the coalition will address this. This is a crucial step in ensuring that everyone has access to a useful and empowered internet. According to the Secretary General of the Association of African Universities, it is essential that higher education institutions throughout the continent enhance their technical capabilities if they want to create a digital Africa.
Indeed, we are the leading advocate for higher education in Africa, and we have the capacity to provide support to our member institutions in meeting their national, continental, and global needs. We pride ourselves as the voice of higher education in Africa. Indeed, our mission as the Association of African Universities is to enhance the quality and relevance of higher education in Africa and strengthen their contributions to Africa's development. We are here today because we've been playing some roles in the internet ecosystem. And I need to note that for a long time, AAU has been promoting the need to build infrastructure, develop policies, and harness capacity of ICT to improve access to quality education in the continent.
Governments, regional and international organizations, and a local internet community make up the Coalition for Digital Africa. The African Information Network, SANA, the African Top-Level Domain, the Association of African Universities, and other similar associations, and the network startup Resource SANA are also founding partners of the coalition.
Sweden and Switzerland will continue to support humanitarian activities in Ethiopia, the country's ambassadors to Ethiopia said. Following the peace agreement signed in Pretoria, the government of Ethiopia has been intensifying its efforts in making humanitarian aid widely accessible to northern Ethiopia, including the Tigray region and other areas. Sweden's ambassador to Ethiopia, Hans-Henrik Lundqvist, told ENA that his country has been supporting humanitarian aid to affected communities by drought and conflict in Ethiopia. Moreover, the ambassador reiterated that Sweden, as a partner of Ethiopia, will continue to support humanitarian activities. Take a listen to him.
Sweden has increased its humanitarian support quite substantially the last 2 years, and Ethiopia is a priority country for us when it comes to support humanitarian efforts in the northern part of Ethiopia, but also the rest of the country. So this is important. Sweden, as a partner, we will continue to support humanitarian activities, of course. There are huge needs.
Switzerland's ambassador to Ethiopia, Tamara Mona, on her part, said the Swiss government has contributed humanitarian aid to people affected in the northern part of the country, including Afar, Amhara, and Tigray regions. The Swiss government has been contributing substantial humanitarian assistance to the north, generally, mainly Afar, Amhara, and Tigray regions, she noted. Here is what she said.
The Swiss government has contributed since the outbreak of the conflict in the north with substantial means the humanitarian assistance in the north generally. So mainly in the Afar, Amhara and the Tigray region in this regard, absolutely. We will continue to support, of course, the government's approach to support these regions for humanitarian assistance and to help the affected communities as much as we can.
You're watching Still Explore Ethiopia, a program that introduces you with Ethiopians' culture, tradition, heritage, and a lot more.
Here is a Christian religion, it is Christian church. So how can it stay here? Okay, you know the relation, the correlation of Islam and Ethiopia, Orthodox Church, especially Chinese and others.
This is the museum found in the premises of Raguel Church.
This is a legend, okay?
There are plenty of heritages that tells a lots of history and culture and treasures of Ethiopia.
Especially the church is built architecturally. When we are seeing it, it is unique architectural design. Ethiopians are keeping their history. It shows that the civilization, ancient civilization of Ethiopia.
It is one of the oldest museums.
Not only me, the whole visitors must bless these people, okay?
In business news, the Ethiopian Investment Commission organized a discussion forum for foreign diplomats with a view to promoting Ethiopia's investment opportunities in their respective countries. Ambassadors and economic and commercial attaches of embassies of various countries based in Addis Ababa have participated in the forum. During the occasion, Ethiopian Investment Commission Commissioner Lelise Neme said Ethiopia is the most favored investment destination in East Africa. Daniel Kasahun has more.
The Ethiopian Investment Commissioner Lelise Neme has briefed the diplomats about the reforms being carried out to attract foreign direct investment by opening up the various investment sectors and economic activities to foreign investors. According to her, removing regulatory obstacles that hamper business and privatizing the largest public enterprises were aimed at attracting more FDI. The removal of barriers to foreign investment will improve the efficiency of the logistics service and enhance the competitiveness of Ethiopia's export.
Relaxing the investment regime to facilitate a friendly business environment, removing regulatory obstacles, and hamper the business to invest and privatize the largest state-owned enterprises, which we hope that will attract more additional foreign direct investment to our country.
Now, investors from various countries are invited to come to Ethiopia and explore the diverse investment opportunities. Since the peace agreement was signed, the Ethiopian side is aiming for more investors to the country.
Ethiopia is a country with big population, and the market of Ethiopia has been a huge and vast. It's not surprising, therefore, that recent years, Ethiopia has most favored investment destination in Africa. Majorly, the reform that we did is Ethiopia has been a recipient of foreign direct investment in East Africa region as well.
The Ethiopian Investment Commission also said Ethiopia has a huge comparative advantage among African countries in terms of FDI. The economic sectors such as mining, services, and ICT could also be mentioned as potential strongholds to attract foreign direct investment to Ethiopia.
The peace agreement signed is a monumental step for Ethiopia to move on the path of peace and prosperity. In this regard, let me seize this opportunity to express my sincere gratitude to Your Excellencies, ambassadors, and diplomats of all countries represented here for your unreserved support to the peace agreement between the government of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia and the TPLF. We count on your continued support in the implementation of this agreement and in the reconstruction and rehabilitation of conflict-affected areas in the northern part of our country.
The ambassadors and economic and trade attaches of various countries who attended the briefing said that the peace agreement reached is important for Ethiopia's future investment climate.
In today's episode, I have come to the Russian embassy here in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Speaking about bilateral relations of countries, a special meaning is attained to the personal relationship between the leaders of the two countries.
How can Russia support Ethiopia?
We are aware of the amazing and really inspiring plans of increasing wheat production.
The Russian Federation shared that experience with Ethiopia in a sustainable manner.
Those people who have imposed these sanctions, they simply don't know well our history.
Going forward, what's the kind of foreign policy that Russia is planning on perpetuating?
Join our efforts to stop this stupid and insane policy of sanctions.
And finally, in our World Cup related stories for the evening, Belgium was knocked out of the tournament. The European nation had enough chances to win that game several times over, but somehow it finished goalless. Lukaku appears to be in tears after missing a few golden chances, but Croatia hung on in the end. Zlatko Dalik's Croat team played a dangerous game, hanging on for a draw and second place in Group F, but they're through to the last 16. During the match between Canada and Morocco, the North American nation tried to win in its last match before 2026. However, for the African Morocco, a draw was enough to send them through into the last 16. Morocco did so for only the second time in their history. Canada was knocked out just like Belgium. Africa now has two teams in the last 16, namely Senegal and Morocco. Group E leader Spain will lock horns with second-placed Japan in an intriguing 2022 World Cup contest at the Khalifa International Stadium on Thursday evening. Meanwhile, wounded Germany will have their backs to the wall when they take on Costa Rica in their final World Cup Group E match on Thursday, and now they must bag their first win of the tournament, preferably by a large margin, to have any chances of advancing.
Away from being in front.
Such are the fine margins.
Coming on, great through ball, good touch take.